Welcome back, 34 past the hour. So we learned this week that the U.S. Army, behind closed doors at Camp Shelby in Mississippi, was telling troops that the American Family Association is a domestic hate group, and it was reported that the instructor classified the American Family Association that way because of its views on homosexuality. Well, now we're hearing the Pentagon saying this label was not acquired from official Army sources and doesn't reflect Army doctrine, even as Todd Starnes over at Fox News is reporting that they're trying to track down who this soldier was who leaked the story. It is just a conundrum. And in the meantime, the American Family Association is talking about potential legal action over this smear, which it definitely was. And we're going to get some more reaction right now from Tim Wildmon, who is president of the American Family Association. And Tim, so great to have you here.
Hey, Janet. Thank you for having me on.
All right. When did you first learn this happened, and what was your reaction?
I would say a few days ago, sometime last week, we heard about this because somebody who supports us attended this meeting at Camp Shelby in Mississippi. Of course, we're based in Mississippi, but this was in the southern part of the state, and a lot of people from around the country, not just here, go to that camp soldiers do. And he had to go to this training class about hate groups, and he said, they're talking about the Nazis, neo-Nazis, and the skinheads, and the, KKK, and then all of a sudden pops up this slide of the American Family Association. And it had our name on there, and then next to our name, it had a picture of Fred Phelps with a holding a sign that had, that's the guy who goes around protesting the soldiers' funerals and just disgusting what he and his group do.
Right.
And it had a very inflammatory, derogatory name for homosexuals on that sign, and so that's the image you came around with. This is a hate group. And here's what they stand for. So not only was it wrong to present us as a hate group in the first place, but then to misrepresent us with a picture from somebody of another group who wasn't identified on the picture by our name was intentional.
Yeah, guilty by association. If Fred Phelps is picketing military funerals, they're all in the same camp, even though I don't know any legitimate Christian who would ever say anything was nice about Westboro Baptist Church.
No, neither do I.
Yeah, it's crazy. So then this was reported by Fox. It was picked up. Now today the Pentagon is saying, oh, no, this wasn't acquired from official sources. How much do you think the Southern Poverty Law Center may have had to do with this?
Well, here's what we know. And Todd Starnes is going to break this story this afternoon. We had him on the air a couple hours ago about this. So he said he's going to reveal this afternoon. The Army, we know now that the Army's this agency that's responsible for training the soldiers on this kind of thing, they refer to the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate group list. For those who don't know who the SPLC is, they're a far-left group out of Montgomery, Alabama. They go way back to the Civil Rights Movement. They were legitimate then. They lost their legitimacy. They lost their reason to exist. And so now they've become a far-left group that tries to link conservative groups like ours with the likes of the KKK and such. Scare tactics. There are hate groups under every rock in America, those kinds of this is the group. They put out their list. Their list is, quite frankly, bogus. It's got a bunch of chapters that I've looked at of the KKK on there that don't even exist. If they do, they meet in a phone booth. I mean, it's ridiculous. But see, they're the group that the Justice Department and now I guess the Defense Department looks to for a definition of what a hate group is. That's what we're finding out, and that's just how this all happened in the first place down at Camp Shelby.
Well, now the Pentagon, though, is saying we didn't know about this. This wasn't anything we were involved in or approved. Do you believe?
Listen to that.
Yeah.
That's what you just said, and I'm talking about you personally. That's when I read that I was going, well, I'm thankful that they took us off the list of hate groups. I appreciate that. But what they told us was the Army, training soldiers who are compelled to be in a classroom to listen to this, and they're telling us that the guy doing the training, they're not responsible for, basically, and he got his information, quote, off the internet, end quote. I'm just thinking, we're not talking about a college elective here. We're talking about a camp or with the Army, with soldiers there who have to go listen to this stuff, and they don't have a choice. And you've got a guy up there teaching this, and who's teaching erroneous information, which you now admit to, that AFA, for instance, is a hate group, and the best answer we could come in with was this guy did it on his own, and he's getting his information off the Internet. I mean, it's just crazy.
It really is crazy. There's a lot more I want to get into with Tim Wildmon, president of the American Family Association, on this whole big story that has broken this week about the Pentagon and treating the AFA as a hate group, as they were teaching this, an instructor behind closed doors to troops at Camp Shelby in Mississippi. We'll be back talking with Tim right after this. You're listening to The Janet Mefford Show. Welcome back, 44 past the hour. Tim Wildmon, president of the American Family Association, is joining me now. We're talking about the story that broke this week showing that a U.S. Army instructor was telling troops behind closed doors at Camp Shelby that the AFA is a domestic hate group in line with the KKK and the neo-Nazis, and we're getting Pentagon reaction today. Now, Tim, when I was mentioning that the Pentagon says this didn't come from us and it wasn't approved by senior Army leaders or so forth, you're not buying that, are you? That somebody above this instructor didn't somehow know that this was going to happen?
Are they training our soldiers about Al-Qaeda and letting the instructor get his info off the Internet? I mean,
yeah, good point.
This sounds so sophomoric. It sounds so silly. The answer, again, we're thankful that the Army now has said AFA is not a hate group and they've taken us off the list. But the fact that how this happened is yet to be fully explained to us, and we want an answer, and we're going to get it. We're going to even if we have to go to court to get it, we're going to get an answer because this is a taxpayer-funded organization. You know, the Army, and here's the thing. There's two things here. Janet, what this is President Obama came into office 5 years ago, and he brought in with him a group of people that have a very far left agenda. They're not your normal Democrats. These people are hostile to the Christian faith. They view conservative Christians as the enemy. They're the same kind of people that would get in control at the IRS and go after conservative groups, and we know how far that goes now. Yep. When they first told us it was a couple of people in Cincinnati. So these people have now ingrained themselves in positions of influence and power, and they're the ones who tell the Army folks, hey, you have to do this, and you have to use the SPLC's hate group. So you see how this happens over time? I'm asking you, do you see how this happens over time?
Oh, yeah.
You know, and yeah. That's the big picture on how this and why this has happened. Let me ask you another question, and I thought about this a couple nights ago. Think about this for a minute. The Army doing a lecture on groups inside the United States.
Right.
All right?
Right.
Whether you call them hate groups or not, what business is it of an Army soldier that he's ever going to have to be concerned about the American Family Association?
Well, that was my question. What was the purpose of highlighting anybody within the United States and pinning them down as an enemy?
Yeah, that's, if you want to say maybe the FBI does that,
yeah.
Or the Homeland Security folks would be concerned about domestic groups, but for the Army to waste 1 minute talking about the American Family Association or any other group inside the United States just seems to me kind of eerie, if you will, or kind of odd at the least, because you're telling me that there would ever come a time where tanks are going to start rolling down the street here, in front of our office?
I would hope not, right?
What in the world would you be doing this for?
Well, that's what I think needs to be answered, because why in the world would you need to train soldiers or brief soldiers on domestic groups? What is the Army going to do to domestic groups? That's the question. That's a great question.
Yes, that is a good question. And, that kind of thing lends itself to people wanting to know how far is the federal government going to go.
Well, and if that isn't what their intent is, then they need to be very straightforward and explain to the American people what their intent is.
Yes, exactly. I'll tell you what, and again, what this is about, and this is the mindset of a secular humanist. They call themselves progressives, but the far left mentality. They're trying to indoctrinate the soldiers to believe that a conservative Christian group is the same as a hate group, and they're using the military and the compulsive nature of how you control those individuals, because they can't say no; they have to go to the meeting to change their thinking, change those people's thinking about groups like ours and conservative Christianity in general. So that's what's at play here, and so it's serious. But we're gonna keep fighting back.
Well, and it's laughable to say, well, this isn't official Army doctrine. Maybe not, but this is hardly the first time we've heard stories like this. I mean, it's adding up quite a bit in recent years, and to try to make us feel like we're stupid for putting two and two together.
Right.
They need to start answering some questions, and Congress needs to start making people answer some questions.
Yes.
Don't you think?
I assure you, that's what we're going to push for. And I know Tony Perkins, I talked to him at the Family Research Council.
Good.
That's what they're going to push for. Because if the Army is going to do this kind of training anyway, they absolutely have to use their own material. You can't have the Army going out and getting a group of hate groups from a far left organization like the SPLC,
right,
with a political agenda against groups like ours.
Right, and just to remind people, the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate map was what that terrorist in Washington used to go to the Family Research Council last year and try to murder a bunch of Christians.
Yeah, exactly, and that was real. And he went in, and he saw the name of the Family Research Council on the Southern Poverty Center Law Center's site, and he, with the intent on murdering people, that guy that went to the FRC. So, the other thing a lot of people don't know is the Southern Poverty Law Center is sitting on $250 million. They're not impoverished.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. They've been raising money, scaring people with this stuff about hate groups, which is not true.
Well, SPLC, and the Pentagon has been letting Mikey Weinstein give some advice to them on religious tolerance. I mean, most people, I would think, don't even know who Mikey Weinstein is.
No, he's what is it, American for Atheism or something like that?
Yeah, the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, but he's virulently anti-Christian. He is just nasty.
Exactly. Let me tell you, this is why it makes a huge difference who the president is, because he brings with him a personnel and people that have a mindset and they are an ideology or worldview, and they impose that on these federal government agencies, and that's what's at play here.
Well, for sure. Tim Wildmon is joining me, president of the American Family Association. We'll be coming back right after this. Well, we really love and appreciate the ministry of the American Family Association. A lot of great folks over there, including Tim Wildmon, the president of AFA, who is joining me now. And, Tim, you were saying, and it's such a good point before we went to the last break, which was, who the president is really matters. But, as I've been talking to a lot of Christians in the last couple of days about this story, everybody is saying this is really scary to us that our own military would be teaching stuff like this behind closed doors, because it affects all Christians. It's not just aiming at the American Family Association. What are your thoughts on how Christians ought to respond to what we're seeing cropping up all the time, incidents like this?
Well, politically, we have to have friends in high places. Because otherwise we'll get run roughshod. I'll give you an example of this. I have, a United States Senator here from Mississippi named Roger Wicker, who's on the Armed Services Committee. Good. And he went to bat for us on this matter with the Pentagon. And I don't mean to sound unspiritual, but I think we have to elect the right people, and Christians have to be educated, informed, and they have to go vote, and they have to get their friends to go vote. You you can't say that that's not important or that's not spiritual. You're just going to focus on the gospel or evangelism. Well, you can say that, and that sounds real pious until the day they come to padlock your church, and then come back and talk to me about how you're going to keep. You understand where I'm going with this?
I do, and it's both and, not either or.
That's right. That's right. And I get so tired of our brethren who want to say it's not important or it's not spiritual. We need to focus on things of the kingdom. Well, yeah, I agree with that 100%, but we need to focus on the part of the kingdom is who we elect here to represent us in the state legislatures, city council, and certainly in Washington, D.C. I put it this way, Janet. The Romans 13 tells us we're to obey the law, right? Mm-hmm. Christians, we're to obey the law and the authorities over us. But as the same pastor who would teach that would also teach that being involved in politics or elections is not important. Mm-hmm. So let me get this straight here. We're supposed to obey the law, but we're supposed to let the pagans make the law.
Right.
Okay, now I'm following you here. This is really making me a lot of sense. So I'm just saying to you, I said friends in high places. What I mean by that is we need to have as many people that understand us and are friendly to us and believe in the Constitution as possible in office, in the House, the Senate, and certainly they also have responsibility for the judgeships. So that's very important.
It sure is.
Of what we do, because we live in a constitutional republic, and we get the government that we elect.
That is so well said, Tim. I couldn't agree more with you. Well, God bless you. Tim Wildmon from the American Family Association. We'll be praying for you and following this story very closely. We're with you.
Okay, thank you, Jan.